I'm Colleen Delaney, and let's do a July wrap-up. Hi, I'm Colleen. If you're new here, I talk about books and writing. Today we're going to talk about the books I read in July. I'm in my room because it is still summertime and my children have overtaken the rest of my house. You will notice that I have flannel Christmas sheets on my bed. And that is because 2 nights ago, I had just taken my other sheets off my bed and put them in the hamper to wash, but hadn't washed them yet. One of my kids got in my bed and threw up all over it. So I only have 3 sets of sheets, and one of them is flannel Christmas sheets. My other kid came in the morning and was like, "Christmas already?" No, I usually don't like to have the Christmas sheets on until December 1st, but we're making it work. The other ones are clean now. I need to switch them out and put regular sheets on my bed. So today we're going to talk about all the books I read in July. And I'm going to be honest, July was maybe the hardest reading month I've had. Definitely since starting this channel. That wasn't November, because November's always hard because I try to write a lot in November and it's a busy month for me. But I hit a terrible book slump in July and it just made it hard to keep going. But I did end up finishing 6 books of varying length. Not like 6 full-length adult books, but I'm out of my book slump now, I'm happy to announce, and let's talk about what I read. All right, the first book I read is volume 6 of Lore Olympus, and I'm going to be super honest, I really enjoyed my time with it. I think the pictures are gorgeous. Now that I'm filming this a full month after I read it, because I read it like the first couple days of July, I don't remember it that well. So I do think that this series kind of is like that. You sort of get fully immersed in the beauty of the illustrations, but then it doesn't have a ton of staying power as to what exactly happened in each book. But I'm still loving it. I'm still going to continue reading this entire series. I just am obsessed with the artwork, like most of the readers. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So then I started reading a book that I think I'm in a DNF because I cannot read any more of it, but I'm going to tell you why this month was so difficult. So I started reading Honey by Isabel Banta, and I probably read like the first 50-ish pages and I just couldn't get into it. I'm just like, I bought this book from Book of the Month because I really wanted Swan Song by Ellen Hildebrand, which I read in June. This was my June pick. And there weren't really any of the June picks sounded good to me, but I wanted that book really badly. And I try not to buy a Book of the Month book. If it's available through Book of the Month, I try to buy it through them because I have so many credits. I get a really good deal on the books. So I didn't want to like buy it from a different bookstore. So I got this thinking that I might read it and I just didn't like it. So I read about 50 pages of this and then put it down and thought I'll finish it later. And then instead I read Falling for the Highlander by Lindsay Sands, which is in the Highland Bride series. These books are all very similar, very formulaic. You have a Scottish hero. You have a heroine who's either English or Scottish. She's usually in some sort of trouble. Someone is trying to murder them. There are a lot of head injuries. There's a lot of spicy medieval times. They're really fun. And this particular one, I've been reading them out of order, but this like jumped me back into order. So I read 1 through 3 and then I jumped ahead and this one was number 4. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'm back after number 3. This is about Lady Murine Carmichael and Dougal Buchanan. So Dougal Buchanan is one of the brothers. After you hit book 3, the heroine in that, whose name is escaping me, has a ton of brothers, and then you kind of follow her brothers after that. So Dougal's one of the brothers, and he kind of saves Lady Murine from her half-brother or step-brother, who's basically like trying to sell her kind of as a wife, but then later kind of as a prostitute. And she's like escaping and he finds her and he helps her escape, but then like someone's after her. It was so much fun. Honestly, I was like, okay, out of book slump. I read this book, it was fun, out of book slump. So then I made a mistake and I tried to go back to reading this again. And I did force myself to get to page 148. I still have my bookmark in. And this book is just so not for me. I hate DNFing books from Book of the Month. This is like a fictionalized story of, I would say, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Jessica Simpson. And I think the person who's narrating is like a really whitewashed version of Christina Aguilera, and that like her friend is like the Britney Spears, and then there's this other girl who we've kind of met tangentially who's the Jessica Simpson because she's like the religious one. And I don't know if it's because like I was a teen during all this, so I already like know all this stuff, but I just haven't been enjoying it at all. And so I don't think I'm going to finish this book. But then after that, I was like, okay, I don't want to read this. So I picked up a book that I'm going to talk about at the end that I had a hard time getting through because I did eventually finish that one. And that just put me in the deeper book slump. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't read anything in so long. So I did a little magic trick, which I don't know if you've heard of this magic trick, but you go to the library because you're on a no buy July like I was, and you get one fantasy novella, Mammoths at the Gates by Nevo, and you get 2 middle grade graphic novels, and you solve your book slump. So the first one I read was Apple Crush by Lucy Nisley, I think is how you say it, because it's a Knisley, Nisley. And this was wonderful. It was so cute and so fall feels, and it's about a girl who's probably, I think she's in 6th grade, and she's feeling like the third wheel or whatever in every aspect of her life. So her parents are divorced. She's moved to the country from living in the city. Her dad's in the city, her mom's in the country. Her mom has a new boyfriend, so she feels like a third wheel at home. Her best friends are like dating now, so she feels like a third wheel with them. Her younger sibling has a new best friend. She feels like a third wheel with them. And it was just so cute. And I tried to get my 11-year-old to read it, and he won't because he's a very reluctant reader. But I think if you want something that's just cozy, sweet, like a very sweet, realistic story of what it feels like to be a 6th grader and be torn between all these different relationships you're figuring out, I think it's a great read. Or if you have a kid in your life who you think would like it. This is actually the second in a series. The first one is about when the main character, whose name I am forgetting right now, Jen, moves to the country. I was at the library today and looked for it, but I didn't see it. I think this would be a great book to recommend to, the middle grader in your life. After finishing that, I felt invigorated. I had finished a book. And so I read Mammoths at the Gate by Nevo. This is the 4th book in the Singing Hills series, and I really like this series a lot. So the first one is The Empress of Salt and Fortune. The second one is something like When the Tigers Came Down the Mountain. I'm going to forget the title to the third one because that was my least favorite, so that one hasn't stuck with me again. This is the 4th one, and it was wonderful. You follow a non-binary monk named Chi, and in this one, you meet a lot of monks and find out that part of their monkhood is that they are non-binary, which I really liked. And in this one in particular, you're in their, temple area, which you've never been in because Chi's always traveling, collecting stories. And they have these, they're like birds, but not birds, who live a very long time and have perfect memories. And so you get to see where these birds live. And Almost Brilliant, who is Chi's companion, has just given birth to a new one of these birds. And then you have, it's called Mammoths at the Gate because these 2 women are trying to get the body of their former grandfather, who has become a monk, back to bury it. And it's just really lovely. And Nevo writes such a rich fantasy world. She also wrote Siren Queen, which I adored. She's written other full-length novels, but Siren Queen's the only one I've read, and then I've read her novellas in this. But the 5th one just came out, and I was at the library a little while ago and checked to see if they had it on the shelf, and they did not. So I'm gonna request it so I can read it in August because I really enjoyed this. It was really fun. After that, I read my other middle grade book, which is called Ghost Book by Remy Lai, and this was not as fantastic as Apple Crush, but still very fun. It's really fantasy. So it's about a boy who keeps having near-death experiences and a girl who can see ghosts because she doesn't exist. And they become friends when he's trapped in the spirit world, and you find out how they're connected. But it was a fun, quick read, and it had a really great mythology behind it. If you have a child in your life who wants something spooky but not super scary, I would recommend it. Or if you're just looking for a great middle grade, I think middle grade graphic novels are such a great reset to hit on your reading life. If you want something that you're just going to be able to read really quickly. I mean, I was at the library today with my kids and I was making them all do some reading time, and I read a middle grade graphic novel, the whole thing, and you'll hear about it in my August wrap up because it's August now. Okay, so the last book on my wrap up, this is the shortest wrap up ever. I did have kind of a hard time getting through, and it was What You Are Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama. I thought I was gonna love this book. I had this down I talk about doing book in a day sometimes, and honestly, my month of July was just crazy. for other reasons, like my book slump was also contributing to other reasons. I have a lot of writing work I'm doing right now for the second book in The Witches of Star Island that's coming out this fall. So exciting. But I've had a ton of writing work. My husband's work schedule's been insane, so he's barely been home. So I have, 4 kids with me all the time and a lot of writing work. So I haven't had one of those days where I just get to sit in the backyard and read an entire book in a day. But I had kind of planned for this to be one, so I thought this was going to be a book I could just fly through. I think it has... I got it because it was said, like, for people who loved Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and there was another book that I had read that was recommended if you liked it. Now I can't remember what it was. And I really liked Before the Coffee Gets Cold, so I was like, oh, I'll grab this. And I understand why it's compared to that, because it's kind of like vignettes that you follow. It's 5 short stories about people who come to their community library and how the librarian sort of like gets their life back on track. I found some of the stories more endearing than others. I think they were a little too long, if that makes sense. I found it hard to stick with the characters for as long as you did. Some of them. My favorite story, unsurprisingly, is about a mom trying to like regain her sense of identity after having children. So that one really stuck with me. But overall, I would say it was like a good read, not a great read. So it wasn't something that I flew through. So it also contributed to my book slump, but I did actually finish this one. Lastly, I did read about 70% of the newest Dark Olympus series by Katie Robert, and I'm going to look up the title because I can't remember it. It is called Dark Restraint. I'm currently like almost done. I've like, let's see how much. I have 55 minutes left in this book. I love that Kindle does that. But it's the story of the Minotaur and Ariadne. I kind of stopped reading this because the last Katie Robert I read, I didn't love the last one in this series. And then I picked up one in a different series, Hunt on Dark Waters, and I just couldn't get into it at all. So I thought maybe I was kind of like, just not in Katie Robert mood anymore. But I really wanted to read the Ariadne and Minotaur one. So I did, you can hear kids playing, I did skip one in the series. So I'm a little lost in terms of what's like going on in the outside plot, like the weird mafia plot that's happening. But I will reserve my entire review for when I'm done reading this. But I do think, as I've been reading this, that this is going to be the last Dark Olympus book I read, because I don't know, I feel like I loved I'm not gonna remember what it's called now. The one with Achilles, Patroclus, and Helen. I loved that one. That one was so good. And then it's just been, a little bit off for me for the rest of the series. So I'm gonna finish this one and give you a review for it on my August wrap up, when I won't be filming in here because my children will be back at school. So that's probably the shortest wrap up I've ever filmed, ? But as you can see, it wasn't a normal wrap up. If this is the first video of mine you've ever watched, I do not usually have 3 graphic novels and a novella on my wrap up. I usually have, 7 full-length adult books. I mean, sometimes I read kids' graphic novels, but it's just not that frequent. So yeah, it was kind of a weird month for me. I'm starting August feeling like I'm in a little bit of a better place. I've already got 1 book finished and I'm reading one I'm really enjoying. So that's helpful. If you're still here, thanks for hanging out for this quick wrap-up video. I hope you're having a wonderful reading summer. Let me know what the best thing you read in July was. Did you read something that just blew your socks off and I should read? Did you read Honey and absolutely loved it? I'd love to hear that, because I'm a big believer that they're like no bad books. They're just like not the right book for the right reader. If you are here and you don't want to write words, even though it is a extremely gray overcast, looks like we're going to have a severe thunderstorm day here, throw me a sunshine emoji. End of summer, love those sunshine emojis. And as always, I hope you're in the middle of a good book, about to start reading a good book, or about to start writing a great book. I'll see you soon.